Hello and welcome to Flourishing in the Word with Alyssa. My name is Alyssa Marie. Welcome to my house. So, life update. So much has changed in the last year and a half, and we are so eternally grateful for what the Lord has done. For those who have followed my Instagram, Flourishing Woman Company, I have blogged sporadically throughout the last year, but there was a season of my life where I put a pause on all social media. Last May, I met my husband and we got married in August of 2024. And we really just spent so much time becoming a family. He's a father of two. I am a mother of two, and we wanted to be intentional about our marriage. We believed that the Lord had joined us together, and we wanted to honor Him with every part of our life. And so that looks like a lot of quality time, a lot of intentional just building of the relationship, which led us to our biggest blessing of this year, which in it's now 2025, and we had got pregnant in January early this year, and our baby boy had been born about 2.5 weeks ago. So, with all that to be shared, I wanted to talk about the miraculous, natural, unmedicated birth that the Lord allowed me to walk through. And honestly, it is supernatural because there is so much fear along the, I guess, the labor and going unmedicated is very I'm losing the word, is not as common these days as it once was. So to modern medicine and modern medicine doctors, there's a little bit of resistance. So I wanted to talk about how I got to this idea of trying to prepare myself for an unmedicated natural birth, and why I felt like this could be tied to biblical womanhood. And here on the Flourishing Woman, we talk about all things biblical: motherhood, homemaking, Christian values, Christian living, Christian families. And what greater way can we see God in our lives is through labor and birth. And so I wanted to just give all God the glory for just making us capable of being birthing women, to be able to allow our bodies to grow a healthy baby in a 9-month period. It's supernatural. And then to be able to receive your baby into the world with all of its cute, unique design that the Lord had created, it's just overwhelming. And I am going on and elaborating about how supernatural it is, and I don't want to get away from that, because it's not an accident. The Lord is intentional on life and Him creating life. And so we want to just highlight what God has done. And I would say my two first pregnancies, which came from my previous marriage, were maybe a little less than what I had desired or wanted, but um, I am thankful that God used those two pregnancies to be able to prepare me for this pregnancy. And I think all my pregnancies, I get to relate to so many different women because they were all so three different. So, first things first, my first pregnancy, I was only 20. I was young. I had no idea what to expect going into the hospital, the birthing room, what it was like to go through labor, um, to be able to control your mind and your thoughts from being fear driven, and to not be able to think that like you're capable of doing such an intense supernatural act. But anywho, I had my first as a vaginal birth. She was definitely a little late. I think it was like 40 weeks and like 2 days or something like that. But I did start contracting at night, and then by 3 or 4 in the afternoon, I had her. However, I was not prepared. I gave in to Pitocin, which was like for pain management. I did get an IV, so I was kind of sitting on the bed the whole time through the laboring, and I received an epidural probably mid-morning that day. And although it didn't take away all the pain, it's nothing like this third time. So I am thankful that I got to experience at least a vaginal birth through my first. And then fast forward to 2 years after that, I had my daughter, my second daughter, and at 7 months she became breech. This time around, I had every intention to do a natural vaginal birth. I was greatly disappointed that she turned breech. I had no idea that you can actually birth breech babies and they are perfectly fine and healthy, and it's possible. But again, I was uneducated and I was kind of fear driven into the doctor's statements like she would be a risky pregnancy, you should do it, let's schedule your C-section. And so they pretty much took the bull by the horns once they found out she was breech, and pretty much told me what I was supposed to do. So the day of the surgery, I went in. I'm assuming they had gave me some type of medication of some sort to put like your body halfway numb. But I was feeling a lot of pressure, and I had just verbalized it to the doctor. Mind you, I was very like oozy. I didn't feel 100% all there. I don't know if it was the lights or the adrenaline or just like the unknown fear of like how does a C-section work, and like I'm not good with blood, so just the idea of surgery kind of makes me bleh. And then I told him that, and he had literally just put me under, and I missed the whole C-section, and I didn't wake up till minutes after. I don't even know exactly how long. And then I was able to receive the baby. And so from that became a really strong passion to try my best to prevent a C-section again. And I know like there's things you can control and things you cannot control. And I was very hopeful that one day I would have more children and that I would be able to, by God's grace, be able to birth naturally once again. And if those of you who have had C-section, we know that the OBGYN doctors typically shun against vaginal births after C-section, and so they're called a VBAC. And so now, new marriage, third pregnancy, I wanted a female doctor, and I had to go on a hunt for one, and I needed this doctor to be okay with doing a vaginal birth. And so I finally found one, and it was out of city, the next kind of county over. And she was highly concerned about the fact that I did have a vaginal birth and a C-section, but she was willing to work with me because my first was a vaginal. So she said there's more than likely a possibility that because you've already had a vaginal birth that you could do one again. But she was like kind of hesitant. She definitely let me know like that there's all these risks, and that if I wanted to, that I would have to go to a specific hospital because it wasn't the one that she normally worked at that would accept it. And so there was just like a lot of little hurdles that I had to get through, but I had to also stand really firm in my belief of like, no, I know my body is capable. Like, I've done the research, I've heard testimonials of different women who have had VBACs and who have had natural births. I've watched birthing videos. Like, I know God designed us to be able to do this. I don't believe He would give you a baby that you couldn't birth and that you would absolutely need to do a C-section. Like, I get there's situations where maybe like the cord is wrapped around the neck, or like you have to choose between mother and baby, and like all these traumatic things. But for the most part, like, I do believe God has given us the ability to be able to birth the baby in the most natural form. And so I just had to really stand ground on my beliefs and my values and morals. And despite like all the multiple like testings, or even when you're in that 9-month period, the OBGYN tends to like to do a lot of x-rays, and I didn't want to have radiation on the baby. So I did 2 to 3 mandatory ones. Well, not mandatory because you can opt out of any, but what I felt like was necessary. So one was to find out I actually confirmed the pregnancy. So that was about like 12 to 14 weeks. I did that. Then I did an anatomy one around 28 weeks, so like 7 months. And then a week before I had the baby, we did one just to be able to disclose whether or not the head was still down. I believe the head was down for a long time just because of the way I could feel the baby's like rump on the high end of my core. So anywho, so those were the 3 that I had opted to do. There was another thing that I believe is my own conspiracy, but I'm pretty firm on it, was the glucose testing. You can opt in or opt out. Most doctors kind of demand that you did it. There are ways to go around it to do more of a holistic approach, and you could do your own apple juice or own concentrated juice in order to do the testing. I failed at my attempt to stand ground and like kind of not do it. So I ended up taking the glucose drink. I felt sick to my stomach. On this pregnancy, I was majority carnivore, so I was only eating meats and fats. So like butter, goat cheese, goat milk, kefir, all my red meats, chicken, all the protein. And so I was just like, there's no way that I need to even take this glucose test. But I wanted to just prove them wrong. So I did. I took it. I was sick to my stomach. I hadn't had sugar in months. And this test came back that my sugar was borderline pre-diabetic. And I was like, oh, heck no. So instead of falling into the trap that most OBGYNs try to get you to do is, excuse me, I was nursing, was trying to get you to start modifying either your diet or put you on some type of prescription or glucose monitoring and stuff like that. So I asked her, I said, can I get my own glucose test and can I log my glucose daily after each meal? So I did one fasted and then after 3 meals. And each time I did, I was getting numbers that were super low. I had nowhere in between, nowhere near where the glucose test from them had read. And so I provided dietary logs, and this whole time she was like fearful that because the first test came out slightly high, which mind you, it was from the drink, that I was going to be pre-diabetic and that this was going to be a high-risk pregnancy. Mind you, all my labs came out normal. I was working out with weights until 8 months pregnant. From 8 months to the end of pregnancy, I was walking almost 5 days a week, every day, 5 days a week, every week. And I was being intentional about eating and taking supplements, proper supplements, and just feeding myself well. Getting rest, sleeping. It really helps when you have a supportive husband that allows you to do so. So, so there was a lot of hurdles that I had to go through in order to keep baby safe and not allow medications and take the most holistic approach that I could during this pregnancy. And lo and behold, by 40 weeks and 6 days, my water finally broke at like 7 a.m. It was not like this crazy gush of water. It was like, uh-oh, did I just tinkle myself while I was cooking everybody breakfast? So that was kind of funny because I never had my water break in person with the last 2 pregnancies. By 10 o'clock, I had drunk. It's called a midwife's brew, and I only recommend doing this if you're past full term. But midwifery has more of a holistic approach, and they make this like drink of cocktail of some sort. And it's supposed to enhance contractions or start contractions, start helping thin out the uterus. So I did it. I was a little desperate because at 41 weeks, my doctor was trying to literally get me into the surgery room to start trying to induce me. She was either going to induce me, pop my water, or by 42 weeks, no matter what, she was going to try to schedule for a C-section. And I'm like, no. So you guys can look it up if you want to do that. By 10 a.m., I started contracting, and the last trimester, so the whole 3rd trimester, I was trying to watch lots of videos on breathing techniques and preparing for birth. And so I was doing a lot of medicine ball stretches, going on walks, doing curb walking, all of the above. But that day, I literally was having a hard time um, not doing anything while the contractions were coming. So I would just like close my eyes, breathe, and just tell myself pretty much that within 60 seconds this contraction would pass. So then, as they were getting gradually stronger, I started a bath, and I would do this often the last several weeks to ease comfort. It's called hydrotherapy, which is water therapy. And so I would take a warm bath, put Epsom salt, soak in the magnesium of the Epsom salt, and do my best to, again, breathe through the contractions. They would get easier when I was in the water. But then at one point around, I would say 12, I literally had to jump out of the water, run to the restroom, and I was shivering uncontrollably. I felt like my body knew that there was a intensity of pain that was coming, and I was trying to prepare myself for it. And so I had told my husband, after I tried to ease through on the medicine ball, I took the bath, I was putting lavender oil on, which is aromatherapy, hydrating, trying my best to stay like intentional about staying here in the home as long as I could, because I didn't know how far along I was dilated. I had yet to do a cervical check. That was another thing that I opted out on. And so by literally 1 o'clock, I was like, okay, I don't think like these are that too far off. So they were literally getting like 4 to 5 minutes. I was like, I think we need to go. So I literally grabbed my boombox and this anointed prayer CD that I would hear every day that prayed over the birth. It was a gift from someone, and I greatly appreciated it. It definitely just allowed the Holy Spirit to just dwell in the room or the hospital with me, and I got to pray through the pain or uncomfortableness, I guess I could say. So my doctor's office is an hour away. We get in the car, and they're getting so intense and so strong, and minutes apart, 3-4 minutes apart. We get to my doctor's office at 2:30. We tried to check in. At this point, I'm literally laboring. Like, I had to get off the wheelchair and get onto the couch in the waiting room on my knees and on my hands. And like, that was the only way I was getting comfort, because I was having really intense labor pains in the back end. So again, I was breathing through them. I had the support of my husband. He was like signing papers and getting us kind of like checked in. We go in to a room finally at 3:30. They did not have a bed ready for me. At 3:30, again, I like opt out of getting like an IV. They asked me how much pain I was feeling. I had said like a 7-ish out of 10. They asked me if I wanted any medication. I said no. They asked if they could do a cervical check, because the doctor that I had wasn't going to be able to get here in time, and so they needed the doctor that was on call to kind of have a heads up. And so I said yes, and they checked me, and I was at a 4 at 3:30. By 4 o'clock, it jumped from a 4 to then a 7. They were about 2 minutes apart. They were getting intense. I finally rotated and was on my body, sitting, laying, kind of like how I am now, maybe a little bit more reclined. And the nurse goes, "You're already at a 7. That was very fast. I don't feel like you're going to um, go very long." And I felt that way too. But I was getting really weakened just by the constant contractions that were coming. That I was like kind of like losing energy, and I was getting tired. And in my head, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But I remember watching videos, and every time they said that every time you feel like you don't know that you could do this is usually when you're the most closest to the end. And so when she had told me that I was a 7, I looked to my husband looked at me, and he's like, "You can do this. You can do this. You were made for this. You were built for this." And I didn't want to medicate the baby through getting any pain relief. And they offered fentanyl at 7 centimeters dilated, which I'm like, why would you offer that to babies? And I was so appalled, and I was so upset. They say like the baby would barely get it, but like, no, that's just, I did not want that in my body, and I didn't want that for the baby as well. Mind you, this was a surprise pregnancy, so I had no idea that we were having a little boy. My hopes and desires were, but we were just waiting to see until the birth. So anywho, from 7 to 10 centimeters was like within 15 minutes. It was intense. It was crazy. I was sweating literally from head to toe. I was like holding on to the rails, like trying really hard to breathe down. Basically, you're supposed to breathe in and breathe down, trying to like, almost like if you're going underwater, putting all your pressure out and through the pelvis to help labor the baby. The team was so supportive around me. Like, there was several nurses. They were like, "You go, mama." And like the doctor had came in probably around 9 centimeters, because it was happening so fast that I was crowning and you could already see the baby's head. And I had told them, like, I feel like I need to push. And so I began to push, and I would say within the last 15 minutes, there was a handful of very strong pushes, and it was just supernatural. The baby's head came out, and then with another push, the shoulders and the body head came out, and we received our baby Joel. And Daddy got to yell out that it was a boy, and immediately I was able to receive the baby, and he started nursing for literally an hour and a half. I opted out of cleaning off his vernix, and I opted out of weighing the baby and finding out its length immediately. Typically they do that. I wanted to wait until baby was fed, and I wanted him to have his vernix, which was that like white kind of natural lotion that the Lord provides for the babies in the womb. And so it was everything I had wanted and more. As far as my birth plan, it had went as planned. I was actually hoping and praying that the doctor that I had wouldn't show up and that I would receive a new doctor. The doctor that was there on call was sweet as pie. It was a female. She literally was like talking me through, giving me tips and advice in those last several minutes. And then as the baby came out, we started talking about motherhood and all this stuff. I slightly tore, so she did have to use lidocaine just to numb the area so that she could stitch me. But even so, like that was, I didn't feel anything. And the healing process for that is like bare minimum. It feels like you have like a band-aid, a small scratch and a band-aid down there. So I'm very, very thankful, very, very thankful to God that I was able to have an unmedicated, all natural birth. And um, God just really revealed that His strength is made perfect in my weakness, in our weakness as mothers. And um, it's amazing the minute you start like nursing your baby, like your body starts contracting all over again. It um it needs to then push out the placenta. I was gonna originally keep the placenta, so I kept it with me in the hospital for 24 hours. But then I decided at the last minute that I wasn't going to use it. I was gonna make like kind of like use it in a way of making bioavailable capsules so I could consume, and the Lord just kind of convicted me on that, and so I decided not to. That I was just going to provide the nourishment that I needed through food and water and all of His things here on earth. So once the placenta passed, I was amazed to see how ginormous that was. It was like 5 pounds, if not like half the size of the baby, if not bigger than, like maybe more than that, like a third of the baby. And you have to push that out as well. But eventually, as you're nursing, your body is contracting as well, and your organs are all getting shrunken down. So like your uterus starts shrinking within the next, several days. And so that was a little uncomfortable, but nothing compared to the contractions that you feel during birth. And so praise God for that. I did lose a lot of blood, so that kind of was a little situation. I had to get up to go potty, but every time I would try to get up to go potty off the bed, I would faint. So this happened literally 3 times, but then I put 2 and 2 together and I was like, oh my God, I didn't eat today. So I literally birth fasted. I had maybe like 5 to 10 grapes that morning, but I think I knew that I was going to have the baby, and like I just had no appetite. So tips for mama, make sure you eat well before you go into birth or at least right after you have the baby so that you don't get lightheaded and faint. But by the next day I felt great. I was able to get into use the restroom all by myself, get out of bed, get myself kind of cleaned up, and we were able to leave the next day. So within 24 hours, we left the hospital from having Joel. And that was another situation. We didn't know what his middle name was going to be. And so we decided on Tucker. So JT is his name for short. And he's a healthy baby boy. We had done no vaccinations. We did oral vitamin K vitamins through their little droplets through a brand called Dr. Green Mom instead of all the needles and all the pokes. I didn't want to do none of that. And he's been thriving. So trust God when He gives you your baby, and trust that God has prepared you with everything you need for your baby. Breastfeeding is truly amazing. It gives the baby all the nourishment it needs. I know it's uncomfortable for the first couple days. My nipples scabbed by like the 3rd day. By day like 6 or 7, they were almost completely healed. I was putting my own tallow on them, and with shea butter, coconut oil, and that is safe enough for the baby to also consume as well. And they healed up and were moving along, and so I'm glad that I had already breastfed the other 2 and was aware that yes, it's uncomfortable, but we don't quit, because they literally thrive off of mama's milk. So yes, that is our birth story. I hope this encourages you or inspires you, maybe even in the realm of becoming more of an informed mom, knowing the pros and cons of medications and vaccines and C-sections and glucose testing and all this. But of course, no condemnation, no shame to anybody who has done it any other way. I have my own experience, but these three experiences are all so different, and I just wanted to glorify God with what He has done in this last pregnancy and share with you guys. So God bless you. If you have any questions, feel free to comment or DM me on my Instagram, Flourishing Woman Co. I love to give feedback. I love to give like my honest reviews. I love to sympathize and have compassion towards what other women are going through. And so, yeah, this is from a mama to a mama or friend to friend. God bless you, and thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, or follow. Not or, and follow. Bye-bye.